Hello and welcome to this Nostradamus Phone Age News Methane Update Special. I do hope everyone had a lovely Christmas. I was going to take a break this week and come back next week around my birthday. And I've just taken down my weekly methane concentration figures. And it's all going a bit weird. There'll be something strange going on with that there methane. Oh, I thought I'd better do a report on it. Now, I know everybody be getting excited now if I was to tell you that it's shooting up, because that's what everybody's concerned with. But it's going in the opposite direction, quite markedly. And I think it's more interesting the way it's falling than rising. Anyway, I'm going to get into it. Stop blabbering on. What I'm about to show you, I have gone over once before, way back in one of my previous videos. But I think this is quite relevant to what's happening at the moment. And it's all to do with the natural decay of methane in the atmosphere. I'm on phys.org here. Some information about it. Where are we? Bear with. Right. Methane in the atmosphere is eventually oxidized, producing carbon dioxide and water. As a result, methane in the atmosphere has a half-life of 7 years. Now, some other people say it's 6 years, some say it's 9, but this says it's 7, so we'll go off 7. It's only we're only estimating anyway. So what we're really saying is just plucking a couple of numbers out. They say the methane in the atmosphere is 80 times as potent as CO2 in the atmosphere. After 7 years, that same methane, there'll only be half of it left, and it'll only be 40 times as potent as CO2. Right. So we've got a 7-year half-life. Now, next I found a handy little half-life calculator on the internet called OmniCalculator, and it just goes off this equation here, which is the half-life equation. So our initial quality, well, lately I've been measuring the average at about 1860 parts per billion, and the half-life time in years is about 7 years. I want to know is how much of that decays naturally in 1 week. Put that in, and then it tells you how much is left. 1856.474, which is round about 3.5 parts per billion. So without any additional methane being added to the atmosphere, with a starting amount of 1860, that should go down by about 3.5 parts per billion per week naturally. Before I carry on, I just got hit by a thought. I wasn't intending on including this in this report. But, I'll have to say it now because I'll only forget. So in pre-industrial times, the methane concentration in the Earth's atmosphere was 600 to 700 parts per billion before people started changing the Earth's atmosphere. So back then, when the climate was stable and we had the same amount of methane decaying in the atmosphere as what was being added to the atmosphere, and it stayed pretty constant. Putting that into the calculator, we get a loss of about just over 1.3, the equivalent to 1.3 parts per billion. So that is the amount of natural occurring methane before the Industrial Revolution that was added on an average week during the year, because we know methane's a seasonal variable amounts. But taken over the course of the whole year, the average is 1.3 parts per billion. Quickly, before I get on with my report, for any new viewers, I'll just show you quickly where I get me figures from. We're on the NOAA Office of Satellite and Product Operations Infrared Atmospheric Sounding Interferometer. And we go on to here, and it says mixing ratio of methane. We've got 2 satellites and 2 readings from each during the day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And you click on one of them, and then you get all the readings at all the different levels in the atmosphere. And I've been taking my readings at 931, 706, 477, 300, and more recently at 151. And I've been doing this for some time now. So, for instance, we click on METOP 1 satellite AM at 931 millibars, and it gives you the range of the lowest measurements to the highest, but I record the mean for each one, and that gives me 16 sets of data each week, where I calculate an average to see whether the methane levels are going up or going down, and to what extent. So here are the latest reported mean figures over the past week, and it's showing some incredible drops of methane concentrations over the past 7 days, up to 10 parts per billion. And the METOP 1 morning satellite last week at 300 millibars, it was showing a mean of 1916, and it's just 1906. And all the other readings are also showing large drops. Now, looking high up in the atmosphere at 151 millibars, these figures have remained incredibly stable since August the 8th. It's been staying within just 4, every single reading has been within a range of 4 parts per billion since August the 8th, apart from this, and that's due to the last week's 1845, which was a big drop on the week before. So I think the 1845 was a bit ambiguous, and this week's just compensated it back to round about where it should be. But we get odd aberrations like this, and this is why I create me 3-week averages to smooth out funny readings, odd readings like that. Anyway, you might also notice there is a discrepancy between the METOP 1 and METOP 2 satellites. See, all the figures are fairly close at 931 millibars near the ground, but as we go further up, in the atmosphere, the differences between the METOP 1 and the METOP 2 satellites, you always get METOP 1 showing a higher value than the METOP 2 satellite. And it's always been like this, and I don't know why, but you just got to make use of the data you're provided with. But as you can see, the average of the Metop 1 AM over the atmosphere all the way from 931 to 300 has dropped an average of 7.25 parts per billion, and in the afternoon it's dropped 7 parts per billion. The Metop 2 AM, which had the ambiguous 151 millibar reading, has shown a drop of just 2.25. But the afternoon one, that's showing a big drop of 6.5 parts per billion. So I've put all these figures into the Doomatron, and I'll show you the usual graphs. So overall, from 931 to 300 millibars, we've had a drop of 5.8 parts per billion since last week. I've never seen a higher number like this in the almost 2 years I've been recording the data. I've seen anything anywhere near this figure, and as you can see, it's had a huge effect on the graph, which plots the 3-week average, showing that methane in the lower atmosphere at least is plummeting. Comparing this week's actual figure to the actual figure 12 months ago, we're currently at 12.8 parts per billion higher. This is comparing the same figures. The blue line is this year compared to the red line last year. And this graph plots the difference between the two. And we reached a difference of 17.5 parts per billion last month. But now the difference between this year and last year has dropped down to just 14.6 based on the 3-week averages. Looking at 300 millibars in particular, we've witnessed over the last 7 days a huge drop of 6.75 parts per billion. But coincidentally, the same week last year, there was a similar drop, only slightly smaller, 6.25 parts per billion. Hence, the comparison between this year and last year is now just 29.5 parts per billion. Here's the 3-week average for the higher levels of the atmosphere, from 477 up to 151. But remember, it's staying steady at 151 for the time being, at least. But it's just absolutely plummeting. On the actual figures, not the 3-week average, we've dropped 14 parts per billion since September. As you can imagine, this huge sudden 7-day drop in concentrations has had a massive effect on my 12-month projections. Here's my latest average, 1856.7. And those are my 12-month projections. And here we are since I made my projections 6 or 7 weeks ago. After the first couple of weeks, it looked like it was heading for worst case scenario. Well, the large drops over the last few weeks, and this week's in particular, showing just how much it's falling. If it carries on falling at this rate, it's going to put us about here by next November, which is only slightly above what it was November just gone. So it's dropped about 5.8 parts per billion this week, and by natural processes, it should only drop by 3.5, and that's without any being added. So I don't know what's going on. Is adverse weather causing it to be destroyed in the atmosphere quicker than it normally would be? We know that life creates methane. There's a lot of the plants or animals that create methane. Are they dying out? Anybody's got any good suggestions as to why methane's dropping so much? I've never seen anything like it. You can drop me a comment, please. It's certainly a crazy puzzle. Anyway, that's my methane report done. Thought I'd do a detailed one. I'll be back next week, hopefully with some fun and frolics for y'all. I'm really pleased. One of my recent videos just hit over 500 viewers. Can't believe it. Thanks to everyone that's watched it and supporting me and giving me them thumbs up. Thanks very much. It's great. I hope everyone enjoys the New Year's celebrations as best you can with what's going on. And I'll see you all in 2021. Thanks again for watching. Goodbye.